Hello, welcome to In the Kitchen with Brett Thorne, a food service industry podcast by Restaurant Hospitality. I'm your host, Senior Food and Beverage Editor Brett Thorne, freshly returned to New York City after spending several days in Chicago for the National Restaurant Association show, which is always exhausting and it makes my feet hurt. But it's a really fun time to reconnect with everybody and to try a whole bunch of food. And I always enjoy it, even though I'm wiped out by the end. And my job is to walk the show floor and look for food and beverage trends. To be perfectly honest, the NRA show is not the most trend forward of shows, but it's still a good way to get a pulse on how what we're eating is evolving. And anyone who was at the show will notice that there were even more plant-based protein items on display this year than in the past few years when it seemed like there couldn't be any more plant-based proteins than there already are. And I'll tell you, they're getting better. The bacon still doesn't taste like bacon unless it's made from pork, but it tastes okay. The chicken, if you put mayonnaise on it and put it on bread with some pickles, it tastes pretty much like a fried chicken sandwich if you haven't had a fried chicken sandwich in a little while. Again, the burgers also, put enough condiments on it, it's not bad. And even the new plant-based salmon and tuna, if you wrap it up in a lot of things to make a sushi roll or a highly seasoned poke, it's fine. By the way, do you know why it's called plant-based instead of vegan, which is what that kind of food used to be called? It's because marketers found that mentioning vegan was immediately a turnoff to most consumers. It was even more of a turnoff than diet or low calorie or light or a lot of other things that menu designers learned quite a while ago would cause sales to drop if you put it by a menu item. That's changed a little bit in recent years as consumers are actually trying to pay more attention to their health and eat a little bit more nutritiously. But nonetheless, vegan still does not score well. And plant-based seems to resonate a bit, but if you compare the now perfectly adequate plant-based protein that's out there, and then you try some of the really delicious animal products that were on display at the show, some unbelievable jamón ibérico, that's a Spanish pork, or Wagyu beef, or just standard beef and chicken items that were delicious. Some really great sustainably raised seafood, and then also a lot of great vegetables and other plant products that are not being disguised as meat. There was a really good creamy tahini that was just ground up sesame, wonderful, ground up into kind of really a liquid, more liquidy than a paste, or some really tasty green chickpeas. A lot of vegetables that are just being vegetables. That is my takeaway from the National Restaurant Show, that if you want to eat plant-based protein, you can, but the best food is the food that's really just trying to be its best self. Speaking of trying to be your best self, my guest today is Ria Montes, the chef de cuisine of Estuary at the Conrad DC. And we discussed Philippine cuisine and the Kamayan meal that she makes. That literally means by hand, and it's like a smörgåsbord, a whole buffet of really delicious food, and you sit around with your family and your friends and you eat it. And I'm looking forward to having you learn more about that. Here is Ria Montes. So you are Ria Montes, right?
Yes, I am.
A Queens native, right? Yes?
Yes, from Forest Hills.
Yes, lovely. I live in Brooklyn, so
Oh,
I'm
really? What
neighbors
part
of
of Brooklyn?
where you were. I am in Park Slope.
Oh, nice.
It's beautiful. I couldn't afford it, but my landlord lives upstate, and I know how to be a good tenant, which is to shut up and pay your rent on time. So
I actually lived in the Upper East Side for a little bit. And it was when they were putting in one of the subway lines. So there was like all this construction that was happening. So nobody wanted the apartments that were like right by the subway.
Second
So I lucked out. All the rent went all the way down, and that's how I got myself a little shoebox on the Upper East Side.
Congratulations.
I made it.
But you've been in DC for quite a while now, right?
Yeah, so I've been in DC for 5.5 years.
That's
It's been quite a while. I really like the city. It reminds me of New York in a lot of ways, but it's also different from New York in a lot of ways, but in good ways. So I really like it here.
yeah, New York has a unique energy that I love, but when it's time to leave, it's time to leave.
Yeah, I think that when you grow up in New York, you either just I mean, everyone gets used to that energy, right? But some of us just kind of get a little tired from the hustle and bustle. And so we're like, all right, time to go.
And you worked in Manhattan restaurants for quite a while, right? You were at Smith and
Yes.
Wollensky and Andaz
Mhm.
and all of that.
Yeah, my first job in New York, like right out of culinary school, was Smith and Wollensky in Midtown, which was just a beast of a steakhouse. And like my first job was to work saute during lunch, lunch into dinner. So there was a lot of come to Jesus moments during the first couple of months of that.
So you, as I understand it from briefly reading your biography, you grew up kind of cooking in a big Filipino household in
Yeah.
Forest Hills. And like I loved cooking when I was a kid, and then I went to culinary school and I thought, oh no, I don't want to be a chef. Like it because it's a completely different thing cooking for
Yeah.
a family than standing in saute for however many hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Angry
Um,
business people having lunch.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I mean this in the nicest way possible. I think there's just a certain kind of crazy that it takes to work in a kitchen. Um, and I guess I found out that I am that certain kind of crazy. So I
Congratulations.
yeah, congratulations. So I stuck with it, and I'm just really glad that I did, because I really can't imagine myself doing anything else except cooking.
Great. Yeah, I thought maybe I wanted to cook and I think maybe the crazy is an adrenaline addiction, but maybe it's some other stuff. It might depend on the chef.
Oh yeah, it's just like a whole slew of questionable mental problems, but I mean, you definitely get used to the pressure, right? There's some people who just thrive under pressure, and if you are working in the kitchen, that's what it is that you thrive under. You learn to love it and hate it, and I think it's like a badge of honor when you learn to work in a controlled chaos. Like kitchens are never going to go exactly, a day in the life in the kitchen is never going to go exactly the way you want it to. And so you just really have to learn to roll with the punches.
And then afterwards, you probably feel great. You're like, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think um, in my younger years and being in the kitchen, I think I really definitely took pride in being able to dig myself out of the weeds, and being able to keep up with all the other, well-seasoned cooks on the line with me. So, I definitely took that astride for sure.
That's cool. And so you've been chef de cuisine at Estuary for a little over a year, right?
Yes. God, it's been a little over a year. Yep.
I saw your headshot and I'm like, wait, I've written about her. And I went back and looked at my chefs on the move column, which is about chefs getting new jobs. And I'm like, oh, there she is.
Yeah. It's me. Hi. Yeah, it's been a really, really great year and a half. When I first took this job on, I did not think that I was going to be in the position that I am now. I think that there's a lot of CDCs out there that are very much under, in the box and in like some sort of constraints, right? I really have been given free reign to do a lot of things that I that I see fit. I get a lot of like freedom when it comes to creativity. I haven't really thrown out any crazy ideas out there that I've been said no to. So it's really nice to be able to have complete ownership when it comes to the creativity. And, I definitely would not be able to do it without the people on my team. Sean, who is, my right hand man, was this opening CDC for Rooster and Owl. And I'm just very, very lucky that when we did work together at No Goodbyes, we quickly realized that we operate on the same like creative wavelength. So, I'm just really lucky that I have a partner like that can help me put together our vision of what the restaurant is like.
And what is Sean's last name so we can give him credit?
Sean too, Tew.
Nice. So probably Chinese?
No, he's not. He's not. He is. What is he? He's gonna tell me if he hears this. He's like, I tell you this all the time. He is Irish and Spaniard. So his grandmother is from Spain.
Nice. See, that's what I get for assuming. You can't assume.
I mean, look, he worked at Rooster and Owl for such a long time. I think he cooks better Chinese food than I do, to be honest. So,
well, that's fair because you're not Chinese, you're Filipino.
No.
And so what is the food at Estuary like?
I think we get asked that question a lot, and this is like from a lot of personal talks with Sean, because I really do lean on him quite a lot when it's like, okay, what do we want this menu to be like? I think that I pride myself in never really putting us in a box, right? Like I don't ever say that my food is Filipino food. I don't ever say because it's so many things at once. I draw from a lot of places in my life that inspire me that just happens to land on a plate. I think if there's anything that we ever really say what estuary food is, we really do focus on locality and sustainability. That is especially is very evident with the farms that we choose to work with. Moon Valley Farm, farmer Emma, she like does all of this farming free of pesticides, and that means that that's a lot more work for her. She plants plants that have natural pesticide effects. So it's a lot more work for her, but she does this so that she doesn't kill the land that she's on, and that's why we love working with her, because she makes a concerted effort to be sustainable. So I think if we are going to be talking about what kind of food estuary is, we really do focus on locality and sustainability, and seasonality. The way I tend to cook is more vegetable forward and more seafood forward, which is great because we're an estuary. So I think that's, if we had to describe our food, I think that's how I would describe it.
Yeah, it has become a weird question. Ask what kind of food is it? Because it's all as the French say, cuisine de chef. It's whatever the chef wants to make.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think when people start asking these questions of like, well, what kind of, it's the same along the lines of like, what inspires you for your dishes, right? And and I think what happens a lot is that people expect like this really long and deep meaning of what a dish is, which is totally fine. And some of the dishes that I have is is like that. But then sometimes I'm like, I just really love salt and pepper squid. So now we have salt and pepper soft shell crab, and those both those answers are fine, and both those answers are good answers, right? Because I think what a lot of people the real meaning behind what inspires you, the question of what inspires you for this dish is more about a question about you as a person and you as a chef than really what inspires you, right?
right, sure. When you mentioned that you have done that, no crazy idea that you've thrown out there has, been kicked back to you. Can you think of some of those crazy things that you suggested and everyone was like, yeah, cool, do that?
I think this is really great. So we do a dinner service here called dinner series called Mise en Place, and we do it quarterly. And this was one of the first ideas that I wanted to do when I came here. This was an idea that I had that I just really wanted to do a dinner series that highlighted all the other females in this industry that you don't usually like hear about, right? And quite frankly, I was just tired of waiting for Women's History Month for someone to be like, oh, and here are the females that we have in the kitchen, right? I was tired of that. So I wanted it to be a thing that we celebrated normally. There are so many, I think what happens a lot is that, there are chefs within the industry who will partner with someone else, but it's like already an established chef, which is probably male. But we have so many females in this industry, and there isn't a lot of talk about that. And I don't just choose to work with female chefs, but I also do dinner series with female somms. The first one that we did was with Erica Parshu. She is the somm at Bottles Wine Garden and Foggy Bottom. And I also did a completely vegetarian menu that we only solely did produce from Moon Valley Farm to talk about Emma and her farm and her endeavors. So that was one of the first ideas that I wanted to do, and luckily nobody said no, because I myself am a chef that nobody really knows, and so why do a dinner series with a chef that nobody really knows to partner with other people that nobody really knows? But here we are about a year into this dinner series, and we've been doing really great with it. So I'm really happy with it. And, our next installment is June 7th, and it's with Julie Cortez. She's the CDC from Kaliwa. So I'm really excited, and I'm very thankful that I didn't get a no from that.
Yeah, though I have mixed feelings about those months. We had Black History Month, of course, in February, and Women's History Month in March, and I forget what April is. And now we're in Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Next month is Pride, obviously, and like, cool, recognize those people, but let's recognize everybody all year long. And
yeah, exactly, which is the reason why I was like, let's not wait for a specific month. Let's just do it.
Right. Yeah, and that's when I try to highlight everybody all the time.
Exactly.
It's more fun to not hear from the same people over and over and over again. I just came back from the National Restaurant Association show, and Danny Meyer was talking, and people were like, "Don't you want to hear Danny Meyer?" And I'm like, I've heard Danny Meyer 10,000 times. I love Danny
Yeah.
Meyer, and he was great, and he was there with Pinky Cole, great big, leading Black woman vegan chef, so great.
Mhm.
Although I've heard from her plenty also, now let's find all the other wonderful voices from
Right.
like you, who is also vegetable forward and loves the seafood. And, I like eating meat myself also. I bet you do too, but.
Yeah, I definitely do too. I just tend to, I don't know. I think it's um, that's just the way I've always eaten. I've just always really loved seafood and vegetables, even when I was little.
I mean, vegetables are great. Another thing that I saw at the National Restaurant Show was all the plant-based protein. And I'm like, okay, cool, but couldn't I just eat plants? Which I do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you chose to be vegan. Just
Right. Well, I've discussed that with my downstairs neighbors who don't want any of the plant-based protein. They go out and they buy vegetables and they're very
yeah,
um
yeah. I think a lot of vegans feel like that's really like very processed, and
right.
so they some of them tend to not go for it.
Right. So do you do many things that specifically reflect your Filipino heritage?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think like the running joke in the restaurant is, does this have fish sauce in it? Because it just like always tends to pop up in something somewhere, and but I think yes, definitely there's always going to be some aspect of Filipino cuisine in the way that I cook. Right now we have a fried pusan. So it's fried chicken that we toss in Filipino adobo sauce. We do ours with black garlic and mushroom soy, but it's all the same flavor components. Um, what I tend to do is take um, a flavor or an ingredient and kind of present it in a different way. That's in just like a different fun kind of way that's not solely like your traditional Filipino dish.
Makes sense. And aren't you also doing some sort of Kamayan feast or something like that?
Yeah, so we actually just finished that last week. It was really great. A lot of people ended up choosing that option. I actually was afraid that I was going to run out of prep, but thank God we didn't. And it was great. It was really nice to be able to talk about Kamayan and what that is, and like the traditional way of eating food in the Philippines. And it's also just a really nice way to be able to eat communally, which is really what Filipino culture is about. Food isn't just something that sustains you. Food is something that also sustains your society and your family and the bonds that you have between each other.
That's cool. So what does it consist of? I've only had it once at a Southeast Asian place in Chicago.
Mhm.
I know Sunda. But what is in your Kamayan feast?
So the Kamayan feast that we had crispy pork belly. Of course, we had to have pork. And then we had a tamarind cured grilled fish that we used rockfish for. And then we also had chicken inasal. So inasal means to barbecue. So Filipino barbecue is very specific because it uses annatto seeds for the coloring, and it's very ginger and garlic forward. So it's not like your typical. There are still sweetness to it. There's pineapple juice in it. There's still sweet aspects to it, but it's very ginger and garlic forward. And then we also did steamed shells. So there are Virginia middle neck clams and bay scallops from Chincoteague that we steamed, and then we put it in a white adobo sauce. So we use like white soy sauce for that instead, and that's what made it white. It was very good. It was very yummy. I was very happy with it.
And does it come out in a whole communal thing?
Yeah, so it came out in this like large platter with banana leaves down. And then you had your grilled eggplant salad on the side, crab fat fried rice, and then you also had fried okra, which
That's
I love. I love okra.
Yeah, okra's great. Um, so I now forgot what my question. Oh, adobo is an interesting thing because it's the same word as Mexican adobo and completely
Yeah,
unrelated in terms of.
completely unrelated. Yeah, it's really like Filipino cooking has a lot of like simple ingredients, but what makes it good is like the quality of those ingredients and how long it usually takes to cook it. Filipino adobo is literally just soy sauce, garlic, bay leaf, black peppercorn, and coconut vinegar. So you get like sweet, you get salty, and then you get like the acidity from it. And whether it's pork or chicken, the secret is that you have to marinate it at least for 1 day to really get those flavors in there.
That's cool. And so what else do you have in mind coming up? We're getting into summer, lots of delicious produce and wonderful fish. Already soft shell crab, probably.
Yes, so we already have soft shell crab. I mean, we just did a complete overhaul of the menu because spring you get such an like onset of new produce. Sean's gonna hate me, but probably in 2 weeks we'll start changing some stuff again to get up on summer things. One of the things that I'm really excited about doing, I've been kind of on this dessert kick, I guess, which what Sean says. There's a traditional Filipino dessert called mais con hielo, which is really just like sweet corn, condensed milk, and shaved ice. So I want to take those like components and kind of reimagine it in a different way. So in like the next week, we'll be doing some R&D for that kind of dessert, just kind of reimagined. And then we've got a new crudo on the way. We've got a new grilled watermelon and squid salad on the way. Yeah, it's just like Sean and I always have this ongoing list of like dishes and ideas. So we'll be in the kitchen as per usual in 2 weeks testing this stuff out.
And how are your customers receptive to like anything you throw out there? Or are there things that they're like, no, I don't like that? Or is it a
Honestly, yes. We Sean wanted to do these crispy pig ears. And I was like, yeah, I love crispy pig ears. And we decided to do it with nakcham. And I remember turning to him and I was like, pig ears, do you think it's just is it a little too weird for like city center in a Hilton hotel? And now we just sell so much out of it. I don't think I can ever take it off the menu. So I do have to say that I think a lot of people are open to trying new things now. And even if you don't like it, as long as you try it, I'm happy with it.
right, totally. So you've been in DC for like 5 years now. Is there anything there that kind of surprises you that you didn't know about the city? Probably a lot, but I don't know if you remember anymore because it's been 5 years.
Surprises me. When I first moved to DC, I definitely thought that it felt a little cold. Um, But I think what surprised me a lot is the pockets of neighborhoods that have like real character to it, that I really, really love. And so I think it's the neighborhoods that surprise me a lot. You know, Columbia Heights is just really great for food. Even pockets of Georgetown, when you get away from like um, the main part of it all, the main street, it's a really beautiful place with a lot of great restaurants. Actually, you don't think that about Georgetown, but you know, a lot of great restaurants there. So I think it's the neighborhoods that really surprised me.
That's cool. It's funny that New Yorkers have a reputation for being like kind of brusque and cold, which is false. This is a false reputation.
Yes, it is.
Um, yeah, I think what happens is that one of the rudest things, I'm not a native New Yorker. I'm originally from Colorado, but
Oh,
you are.
wow.
And it seems like one of the rudest things you can do to a New Yorker is waste their time. So, like, if you need help, we will help you. But if not, why are you talking to me? You know, which means if I'm walking down, I'm in Midtown and someone says, which way is Madison Avenue? I'm just going to point. I'm not going to say, oh,
Yeah.
Madison Avenue. That's fancy. What you going to
Yeah.
do? You're
Here
going
you
to go.
go.
Right. Exactly. Just there it is. And, if you're from a city that likes to chat a little bit more, they might think, oh my goodness, that was very brusque and rude. But no, we're just trying to lubricate your life. Like,
Yeah, we're all busy. We all appreciate each other's time. That's all.
very friendly. So let's talk about some of your other food. We talked about a little bit about salt and pepper, squid, obviously, Kamayan. What are some other dishes that are on the menu now that you're excited about?
Man, I really love our tagliatelle. I love making pasta. So all our pastas are made in house. And the tagliatelle that we have right now is a white peppercorn tagliatelle. So the white peppercorn is actually in the dough. And it's a vegetable pasta, so it's really whatever vegetables that we get from the farms. So right now I have asparagus and garlic scapes and mushrooms in it. And then it just gets white wine and garlic and a little like basil puree, and then it gets topped with crumbled goat cheese, and it is my favorite dish right now, for
Sounds
sure. Yeah. I think my second favorite dish, man, it's like saying like which kid is your favorite? But my second favorite dish is the steamed shells. So steamed shells, so Virginia clams, and then the bay scallops that I was talking about from Chincoteague. Then we do it in white wine, garlic, and then it gets mounted with furikake butter. So we fold furikake in with butter, and that's what the sauce gets finished with. And it's just very yummy and a lot of umami there. So I think that's like my second favorite one.
That sounds great. So why do you love making pasta?
You know, it's just like there's something very zen about it. It's something very zen about it. And cooking makes you utilize all of your senses. And I feel like pasta really, really does that, because it's like if you look at a pasta recipe, every time I give the cooks, like when I teach the cooks how to make pasta, I always say, okay, here's the recipe. But what's most important that you need to look for is how it feels, what it looks like. Because pasta is just one of those things that, like, on some days the flour needs more water or more eggs, right? And it's really being able to identify what it is really that you're looking for. And I think that's why I probably really like making pasta. It's very zen.
Yeah, totally. And It's funny that you mentioned that cooking requires all five senses. It's really the only art form that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's weird that so much of food now is absorbed by social media, which means they can only see it. That's it. Maybe hear it, but probably not.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And there are all these cooking shows, obviously, and competition shows, and yet, like, if I'm watching a fashion competition show, I can say that's an ugly dress, and my
Yeah.
opinion is as good as anybody else's. But when it comes to food, like, they don't know. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah. I mean, a food is such a like a personal thing, whenever someone, I think that's why I always get a little mixed feelings about like awards for food, because it's such a personal thing, right? Like, maybe I don't like this certain thing, but there's probably five other people that like what I don't like. Um, and I think that food in its sense is like such an art form, because it just kind of depends on who appreciates it. That's really funny that you bring that up, that food really is an art form, and it really does take all five of your senses, which including your hearing, which my cooks always are like, what? I'm like, well, you have to listen. Like, when I put this meat down, is it really sizzling or is it not? Because that means your pan's not hot enough. Like, it takes all those senses to cook properly.
Yeah, and when it comes to awards, they definitely have to be taken with a grain of salt. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been a judge for various awards, and I know that it is arbitrary. And, like, I do my best to be fair to everybody, but it just depends, and it depends on what the other judges think. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like, being in the food industry, whether you are working in a fast casual place or you are at a fine dining place, um, there's no doubt that people work very hard and put in a lot of time and effort and a lot of dedication and a lot of personal life hours that is taken away, that I don't think that you necessarily need to award one person over the other, because everyone makes these sacrifices to be in the food industry, and should all be awarded and seen.
these are important notes to remember as the James Beard Awards are coming up, and a bunch
I
of
mean, I still have my favorites. Don't get me wrong.
yeah. Well, and if the ones you like best win, you'll say hooray, and you'll
Yeah.
go out and probably drink with them or whatever. And if they don't win, they'll say, oh well, and then you'll
Yeah.
go out and
And then
drink.
you'll go out and have a drink with them anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and awards are self-perpetuating, because even if you don't like them, if you win one, your publicist is going to tell everybody in the world, and you're going to hear about it, and so it makes it all look very important, even though actually what's important is your well-being, the well-being of your staff, and how the restaurant is doing.
exactly. When I first got on here and everyone was like, oh, like, what are your goals? Do you see a Michelin? Is that what you're striving for? And my answer has always been the same. I just, at the end of the day, I want to cook food that I love, that I'm proud of. And most of all, my team loves to cook as well. And it's my cooks' opinions that matter to me more than, getting written up or having an article. I mean, being on a podcast is great too. Don't get me wrong, but what really matters to me is that my cooks love what they're cooking, because that's the only way that it's going to be right every single time it goes out.
And that is a very lovely note on which to conclude our podcast, because we're about out of
Thank
time
you.
anyway. Thank you so much, Ria Montes, for hanging out with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm gonna try to get to DC soon so I can eat all your food.
Yeah, let me know. We'd love to have you. I'll feed you, I promise.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.